Hey girl, are your healthy habits all over the place or non-existent? Do you wish you could find true food freedom, move your body for joy, and really just talk a little nicer to yourself? If you have tried to habit hack your health, but the strategies you've tried just haven't worked for you in your busy lifestyle, then this podcast is for you. Hey, I'm Emily Nichols, habit and fitness coach, behavior change specialist, and Taco Tuesday enthusiast. Hey, I am here to tell you there is an easier way than what we've been taught about our health and our habits. How do I know? Well, because I've transformed my own life through habit hacking, and now my family gets the best of me, and I now help my clients do the same. I'm now going to teach you how to create healthy habits in less time, guilt-free for all seasons of your life. It's not your fault your habits haven't worked, my friend. We just have to do them differently. So, are you ready to feel empowered and transform your habits and life? Then let's do this. You're listening to episode 211 of Self-Transformed. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. Okay, have you ever felt like you are on the hot mess express and you do not know how to get off? You feel stressed. You have feelings of tension and you just feel it physically manifesting in your body. It's just a constant feeling of stress. I'm raising my hand. I have felt that way before too. This is normal, especially for busy working moms, right? So how do we find the calm in all of the chaos of our lives? How do we create habits to ensure we are creating calm in our life instead of more stress? I think it all depends, actually, I know it all depends on how you react and your habits around the stressors that happen in your life. And I'm really excited about today's episode. We'll be talking with Michelle Grosser of the Calm Mom podcast. We're going to be talking about something called the personality patterns. So I'll share with you in a moment what my personality pattern is. Michelle will share a quiz with us. I'll make sure to link it in the show notes. But I went and took the quiz after talking with her to really recognize what my personality pattern is as well. This can really help you reflect a little bit more into the stress you have in your life and how you're dealing with it and create healthier habits so you can get off that hot mess express, right? A lot of times it just starts with awareness and being intentional. But when you're going, 1,000 miles per hour, the train is about ready to fall off the tracks. It's hard to do that. So we're going to help you do just that. So first, what are the 5 personality patterns that we're talking about today? So they are merging, leaving, enduring, rigid, and aggressive patterns. So what these patterns are, these are deeply held ways of thinking, ways of coping that you learned in childhood, right? It's a survival style, right? And it has a really powerful influence on your adult life. So, and after years and years of repetition of this particular coping mechanism, survival pattern, the repetition of it, that certain way of thinking, speaking, acting, it becomes automatic, right? It's a habit, right? Even though this might create more stress or drama and feelings of discouragement in your life. So once you know your particular pattern or survival style, if you will, you can learn more about this pattern behavior that you have and flip it around so you feel more presence, more calm in your life and lose that stress, okay? So we'll be digging into this deeply with Michelle today. And when I was having this conversation with Michelle, I was like, okay, what is my pattern? So I took her quiz. Like I said, I'll link it in the show notes for you as well. And my personality pattern is merging. And as I was digging into what this personality pattern means and how I can relate it back to my life, I had a few light bulb moments, right? So the reason I focus so much on taking care of yourself is because my personality pattern is merging. And what that means is connection to others and putting other first is a tendency that I have. Right? I look to others to fulfill my needs a lot of times. My gifts, though, are that I'm caring, I value relationships and being needed, right? I want to do all the things. I want to nurture. I want to do everything for my family and friends and my clients. And I was like, okay, this kind of makes sense. So why is my pattern like this? So I had to think back to my childhood, and I had a great childhood. I don't remember any drama or trauma or anything. The biggest thing in my life is I've grown up with a brother with cerebral palsy, a special needs brother. My brother and sister are twins. They're 4 years older than me. And my brother, Andy, was born with cerebral palsy. He's nonverbal. It's hard for him physically to move around. He was in a wheelchair. Mom and Dad had to always help feed him. We would all help take care of Andy. And his needs always had to come first, or we didn't do some activities because it was hard for my parents with my brother. And I don't feel traumatized by that when thinking about all of that. With me, I'm the youngest in my family. I was just kind of well, that's just Andy. That's just how he is, and that's just how our family is, right? But as I thought about this a little bit more in my merging personality pattern, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of see why I fall into this pattern. I want to take care of everyone else because I saw my parents, especially my mom, taking care of all of us, especially my brother. I saw her not taking care of herself. And I found myself falling into that pattern. When I started my own transformation journey back in 2015, when I think back to when I really started reflecting on this, it was oh, okay. So tell me if you've ever felt like this before too. So, back in 2015, I was climbing the corporate business ladder. I was doing all the things I could for my kids, just trying to be like a Pinterest perfect mom. And I was dealing with all of that and all that stress and anxiety I was inflicting on myself really through unhealthy ways, right? I wasn't taking care of myself. I was turning to food and alcohol, but I was taking care of everyone else. From the outside, everyone was great. I was getting the praise for being the nurturer, for being the mama, right? And I remember going to the doctor. This might be TMI for you guys, but we're going there because a lot of times the patterns that we have, it can manifest in you physically. So I went to the doctor for IBS. It was literally all the stress of taking care of everyone else was manifesting in my body where my gut was totally upset. And they were going to put me on medication. And I was like, no, I don't want to be on medication. And that's when I actually started digging deep into my own self-care habits. I started with my habits and relationship with food and turned around the way I was eating because I was using it as a coping mechanism. And lo and behold, the IBS went away. Wow. So this is why I focus so much on healthy habits and self-care, is because it doesn't come natural to me. What comes natural to me is getting validation from everyone else and taking care of everyone else. And that does end up causing a lot of stress in my life. All the mamas listening out there, are you nodding your head oh, okay, I see this. So I didn't see my mom modeling a lot of self-care for herself. I see her doing it now, which I love that for her. But back then, having a special needs brother and a big hug and all of the prayers and hugs to all the special needs mamas out there, because I saw my mom go through the thick of it. Even now with my brother as an adult, she's still taking care of him, just in a different capacity now. So when thinking about your pattern, it's really good to kind of sit back and reflect. This was a big aha moment for me. And that's why inside of our Mindset Accelerator, one of our signature mini courses, we really do dig deep into what true self-care is, okay? So I kind of went through the first step of what I learned from talking to Michelle, which is learning my personality pattern. And thank you for letting me share that with you and being vulnerable about my brother and my IBS, okay? But today we're going to dig a little bit deeper into realizing what your personality pattern is, how to regulate your nervous system, and really just how to create healthy habits once you're aware of that pattern to create more calmness in your life. So like I said, Michelle Grosser is on the podcast today. She is the host of the Calm Mom podcast. She's a mom of two. She's a lawyer turned life coach for millennial moms, and she is teaching women how to access their mind-body connection. She helps them heal and grow through things like self-doubt, burnout, and setting boundaries so they can rediscover the deep joys of life and motherhood. That's where it's That's where it's at, my friends. We don't need to live in a constant state of stress. We can find calm, but it does start with digging deeper into our own personality patterns, learning how to regulate our nervous system, and creating healthy habits and boundaries around that. So I love this conversation so much. I know you will as well. Make sure to stay around to the end. I'll share my 3 biggest takeaways with you. Are you ready? Get your pen and paper handy. You're going to want to take some notes. Let's do it. All right, gang. Thank you again for tuning in to Self Transformed. If you are feeling like a hot mess express, everything feels chaotic, we're going to find the calm with Michelle Grosser today of the Calm Mom podcast. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here.
So excited to chat with you. So, Michelle, the first question I ask every guest is, what comes to mind when you hear the phrase self transformed?
I love that. I saw that question, and the first thing that came to me was this idea of the law of emergence. And it's just this idea, right? That like, I don't know, imagine like a huge oak tree. And it starts as this little seed, and it has everything inside of it that it already needs to become this big oak tree. And I think that every single one of us is the same way. Like, we're not broken, we're not defective, we're not any of these things, but we have everything inside of us already that we need to walk out our calling and our purpose and to live this big, beautiful, fulfilled life. And the self-transformation process really is just kind of stripping away some of the layers that are kind of hindering or blocking that. But all the goodness is in there. And, that's kind of when I thought about being self-transformed. That's what came up for me.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you pointed out that a lot of it is already inside you. You have what you need, but sometimes we have to move a lot of the outside noise out of the way in order to hear what's already there, right?
100%.
I love that so much. Well, can you share a little bit more about you? Maybe your own transformation story as far as what has led you to what you do today, and most importantly, who you are today.
Yeah. So I'm a mom. I have 2 girls. I'm a wife. And for the last better like 10, 11 years, I've been practicing law. And I think I've always self-identified as someone who's very like logical and type A and high achieving and all of these things. And then mid-pandemic, like a lot of people, I think I kind of had this awakening that was like, I just had this 3 a.m. moment. And I was like, man, I just feel like all the women in my life are coming, and all the stories I hear, like everyone's like anxiety is next level. People are dealing with so much overwhelm, all this new stuff that they're expected to hold now. We're trying to work from home. We're trying to homeschool. We're with our spouse 24/7. And it's all this new stuff. And I'm like, it's just so consistent. And I also felt a lot of that. And I just felt this really strong pull to be part of a solution, or at least create a platform where people could come on and help empower women. And I decided to get certified as a coach. And in doing so, I thought, okay, I'm going to learn some tools, and I'm going to be able to really like help the women that come across my desk and these new clients. And what I found was 10 months of immersive coaching where my world was completely flipped upside down in every beautiful way. I realized how out of touch I was with my own intuition, how out of touch I was with anything from the neck down. I just lived in my head and my thoughts, and that was my whole world. And how out of touch I was with my feelings and my emotions and all of the constructs and paradigms I had around that feelings were weak, or feelings, no one has time for feelings. Like, that was just how I was operating for so long. So the transformation in myself that I saw and experienced over that year was incredible. And now that's so much of who I am, is just helping women to connect with those parts of themselves, with their bodies, their nervous systems, so that they can be equipped to experience this law of emergence and this self-transformation you're talking about, and strip away and clear away all of that noise, so they can really parent and live and work from a place that feels really centered and aligned.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hear so much of, oh, I want to be centered. I want to be aligned. I want to be like the best mom, the best coworker, the best wife, but then you're like, well, how the heck do I do that? So what does that even mean? And I love how you really are focused on that mind body connection. I was just talking about that in a class this morning, just talking about the mind body connection and everything we do, not just with health and fitness, but just in everything that we do and how our body and our mind and our heart reacts to things. I feel like a lot of us have some tendencies or habits that we already do really based on our personality, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you've always been a very logical person. The script was kind of flipped upside down for you as you went on this transformation journey, which is so cool and so scary and so, challenging, but it's so beautiful on the other side of it once you reach that. And then the next transformation happens, right?
Yes.
But I love how you talk a little bit about personality patterns. I think this is so interesting because I think a lot of us, like you said, you were able to be like, okay, I'm a logical person. I'm always in my head. I'm not really in my emotions. And I'm sure some ladies listening can be like, oh, I can identify with that, or complete opposite. And I know you are really, really versed in this. So I'd love for you to maybe talk a little about how we can recognize maybe our own personality patterns, really in order to create habits to help us really lean into kind of like what you were able to lean into, finding that calm, finding that alignment, so we're not feeling burnt out and just on that hot mess express all the time.
Yeah. Yes. So I don't know if you guys listening, or maybe you yourself, you've like come across something and it's so fascinating to you that you just go so deep down the rabbit hole and want to learn everything about it and then share it with everyone. And that's how I felt when I discovered these personality patterns. And there's 5 different personality patterns, and they're different than like the Enneagram or like the Myers-Briggs that tells you like what personality type you are. But your pattern is actually a coping mechanism that you've picked up probably in early childhood that you've been doing over and over and over again for decades now, so much so that you've identified it as part of your personality when it's actually not. It's actually one of those kind of layers that we've been talking about that's masking who you actually are. So the 5 different personality patterns originate in different ways in childhood, and they show up in different ways. And I can talk about a couple of them. I also have a quiz on my website. Maybe we can link it, but it's really short. And the landing page is your personality type with so many resources about how it might be showing up, how it might be blocking and stifling and leave you feeling stuck, and then what you can really do about it to try to heal that pattern. So some of the different patterns that you guys might resonate with, one is the merging pattern. And the merging pattern, if you carry this pattern, is that when your body feels any sort of stress or overwhelm, you kind of flip into this mode where you are just like taking care of everything and everyone around you. So you're making sure that everyone's good. You feel this deep sense of responsibility that everyone is in a good mood, has a good time. Other people's energy or off day really affects you deeply and you almost take it personally. You're probably a very good host because you're good at making sure that people feel welcomed and feel loved. So there's so many beautiful things to this pattern, but you probably also are so codependent on how everyone else around you is doing that takes a lot of your freedom and power, I think, to actually stand in who and what you are and what you need. Another pattern, the pattern that I carry, is the rigid pattern. And if you carry this pattern, you're probably like myself, you love systems and routines and checklists. You thrive in order. Like before I really knew about these patterns, it was like an inside joke between my husband and I that when he did a U-turn, it would like an illegal U-turn, it would like drive me crazy. Because my pattern loves rules and following rules. And it makes sense that I then became an attorney, right? Because my whole world is governed by rules and laws. So that's another pattern. There's an enduring pattern. So if you carry this pattern, when you're stressed out, you kind of hunker down and you hold everything in. So you're the person that maybe everyone in your family and friends comes to vent to because you're really good at just holding everyone's stuff. You can withstand a lot. You can withstand painful experiences and you just kind of hold it and hunker down. So there's all these, there's 5 different patterns. Those are some of them. And they really do. They show up in all these different ways. They have gifts, but then they also have ways in which they really hold us back. So an awareness of them is so powerful.
I'm sure a lady listening was like raising their hand, like, yes, that is me to a T. I love that so much because that really can really thinking of, recognizing, and we'll make sure to link the quiz in the show notes for everyone too, Michelle, kind of recognizing what personality pattern you fall under and kind of realizing how maybe that pattern, like you said, that maybe, like you said, I think it's interesting you said it's something you started in childhood. It's a coping mechanisms for when, you know, it gets really busy as a parent. It gets really busy at work. You're not feeling connected to your spouse. Oh, friends, I forgot about them. Where are they? where I need to like text them and get together, but I don't have time. And I feel like knowing all of that can really either help those super important areas of your life flourish, or maybe at the same time feel overwhelming. Because if you're the first one, what was it, merging?
Yep.
Yeah, you're taking on all these other people and things, and that can feel very overwhelming, especially as women, we're nurturing beings anyway. So how can we kind of lean into that and think of, okay, where am I maybe getting, taking this to the extreme, and now I'm feeling just burnt out, and how can I maybe dial back, realizing, okay, this is just part of my personality. How can I find that calm instead of going 20,000 miles per hour?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. So I think the first step is just awareness, like anything else, right? We just have to become aware that we hold this pattern, which is why the quiz is so helpful, because you can kind of see what your pattern is and how it's actually showing up. And that's where you get a lot of aha moments. You're like, oh, I thought that's just how I was, but I see now that this is actually a pattern. And then when you do some journaling or some reflection around that pattern, I think you can start to notice why, right? The why behind why it might be starting to show up. So if we stay with that merging pattern, for example, why is it that when I start to feel stressed or overwhelmed in my body, I want to make sure everyone else is around me is okay? Well, maybe when I was a child, I felt like I was always walking on eggshells because maybe, my parents were really demanding, or they could switch, a switch could flip in a second. And all of a sudden I didn't know what I was getting from my parents. So I found that I just keep everyone around me happy, and that helps to keep me safe. Well, now I'm 35 years old, right? And I don't live with my parents anymore, but that pattern is continuing to run. So just being aware of it and catching that, you can actually catch yourself and just remind yourself, okay, I'm safe. Even if people around me are having a bad day, even if my husband is upset about, something that has nothing to do with me, I don't need to take on that energy. And we can learn to have boundaries around that, to protect from the overwhelm and the burnout. For my pattern, when I find that I'm getting into that rigidity, I just remind myself, like, I know through so much of my childhood, I received love and positive reinforcement when I did things well, right? When I made the honor roll, or when I made the team, and a lot of people experience that. And then we get into adulthood and it's like, we're conditioned where if we achieve, that's how we receive love. So when we have that awareness, we can be like, okay, I don't need to be the number one performer at my job. I don't need to have the six pack. Maybe I don't need to have all of these things that we know we're doing for another motive, not necessarily just for our health or our satisfaction, but that's so others will give us that love and that positive reinforcement. So learning how to give that to ourselves, learning about our worthiness, learning how to receive, learning really just how to independently find those things that we sometimes look for from others can be so healing. So a lot of awareness, and then a lot of finding out and just getting curious about why is it that I've shown up this way, and how now as an adult that I'm so much more resourced that I can help resource myself now instead of relying on this pattern to get me something that I needed, when I was 4 years old or 8 years old.
I love that, resourcing yourself, and journaling is such a great habit to do that, because I feel like words literally physically come out of you as you are writing it down, because sometimes we just carry it all in our head and we just have to get it out. And that's such a wonderful habit, like you said, to help you become more aware and be like, oh, okay, I'm leaning into this a little too much. Where can I back down? And I think it's interesting you mentioned, bringing up health a little bit. I notice a lot with women, a lot of opinions or ideas we have about health are created when we're kids, but based on what we saw in commercials, what diet culture was telling us, what our moms were even doing as well, and sitting back and realizing like, oh, okay, we don't have to do it this way. I can change it. One thing I'd really love to explore too, journaling is such a great way to kind of become more aware, but also I think leaning into physically what is happening to you when you are starting to feel that burnout, overwhelm based on your personality pattern. I know you talk a lot about regulating your nervous system, and ladies, this is something we really need to lean into because stress, burnout, overwhelm, I so strongly believe it manifests physically
Yes.
in your body. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit more and how we can become more aware of maybe the physical cues our bodies are giving us and some ways we can kind of cope with that, some healthy habits to help regulate that nervous system? Okay, I know you've felt this way before too. You start a new healthy habit routine and you find a good flow, but then life gets in the way and you find yourself in a new season of life and that healthy habit routine isn't working now. Instead of just giving up, come take my free masterclass, The Healthy Habit Reset. You will learn the simple 5-step habit change method I only share in the masterclass, where I take the overwhelm and confusion out of health and teach you how to reset your habits, whatever season of life you are in. Okay, and I know what you're thinking. How long is this going to take? I know your time is precious, so the masterclass is broken up into 3 15 to 20-minute modules you can seriously watch while you're just folding your laundry, and includes a workbook to help you take action, so it won't take up a ton of your time. Check it out for free and let me know what you think at bit.ly/free reset masterclass. I'll see you inside of the reset. Okie dokie, let's get back to the show.
So again, the first step there really is awareness.
Yes.
And it's slowing down and it's taking time and being intentional about paying attention to your body, the sensations in your body, the tension in your body, the pain in your body. I know for me personally, for so many years through my 20s, I would get to a point where I felt so overwhelmed and burnt out. And I was like, I have so much pain in my neck and my shoulders that I can't move. I'm immobile. I can't sleep. I need to get a massage. And I thought that was just I'm just stressed out. I need a massage and that's going to solve it. And that's a beautiful way to start moving energy in your body. But I never really listened or noticed to what the message was that was trying to send me. And I think there's so many ways our bodies communicate with us, and we just don't slow down enough to pay attention to what it's actually saying. So just taking time, a few minutes in the morning is one of my favorite habits, and just doing a body scan and starting at the top and working its way down and noticing where am I holding tension? Or is it around my eyes today? Am I holding a ton of tension in my jaw? A lot of us women, right? We hold so much tension in our jaw, especially when we're sleeping. We don't even realize it. Just releasing our jaw, peeling our tongue off the top of our mouth, and just allowing ourselves to move and express in a different way. Do I hold a ton of tension or pain in my neck or my shoulders or my back or my stomach, right? So many gut issues are actually emotional issues of dysregulation, and they show up as IBS, cramping, so many different things. So it's paying attention to our body. And I heard this quote the other day. I don't remember who said it, but it was so often we try to kill the messenger instead of listen to the message. And I was like, oh, snap. That is so good, because that's what our body's doing. It's trying to give us a message. Slow down, pay attention. You need to have this conversation. You need to deal with this thing you've been avoiding. You need to set this boundary. You need to take better care of yourself. You need to, all of these things that it's trying to communicate to us that we don't slow down enough to pay attention to. So really just noticing how that shows up in our body. When we notice we're becoming dysregulated, I'll take, for example, my kids. For some reason around bedtime, I always it's super triggering for me. There's something about it that causes a ton of stress. I'm exhausted. They're exhausted. I just want them to go away. They don't want to go away, right? It's all the mom things at night. So I've had to really learn how that shows up in my body. Yes, I get irritated, but somatically, my heart starts to beat more quickly. My palms get sweaty. I tense up right away. I notice it. My shoulders will kind of go up and I just feel so irritated, a knot in my stomach. My breathing changes. It becomes more shallow. So I've been doing this work for a while now, but as you start to notice these things, then you can start to do something about it.
I'm laughing because as soon as you're like, get your tongue off the roof of your mouth, I was like, okay.
All of us. Yes.
All of us, because I say that when I teach classes a lot of time. I'm like, relax your jaw, take your tongue off the roof of your mouth. Because a lot of times we hold so much tension there. And we did an episode, episodes ago, talking about how the gut and the mind and gut connection, and how like your gut literally is telling you like, hey, something is not right. Like we talk about that gut feeling, leaning into that literally and being like, okay, it's not just like, a food I ate, like dairy is upsetting my stomach. It's like, I'm literally like anxious about something and my body is telling me. I think a really great way to do this is just to have a tracker, be able to track it and kind of see if maybe there are some certain things happening within your day that is triggering that tension you feel. My husband, he feels really triggered at bedtime too. He's like, I just want them to go to bed. My kids are older. He's just like, I just want one-on-one time. Just go to bed. And I can feel that tension rising in him too. So I think being able to track this is so great, and being able to just to recognize what are some patterns you're noticing. How can you then relax? Just simple as, like I said, relaxing your jaw, taking the tongue off the roof of your mouth, leaning into like, okay, my stomach's really upset. Can I take away maybe that unhealthy habit or something that's triggering me, and just see how your body then relaxes, and that will relax your mind too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
I love that so much. So, well, kind of to wrap up, of course, we've been talking a ton about some wonderful habits that we can implement to help us find that calm, lean into our personality, and just become more aware. I have a feeling we've already talked about this a little bit, but you mentioned high impact habits. And I want to know what you mean by that and how that can help us find the calm.
Yeah. So one of my favorite high impact habits, and it's had such a difference for me since I've had children, really is not initially when they're little and you're not sleeping, but once they're sleeping, waking up before your kids. I think that is so powerful, regardless of their age. Once you're able to sleep through the night, waking up before your kids, and if this feels really triggering for you right now, you don't need to wake up at 4 a.m., but even just 10 minutes, 15 minutes before your kids to start, you're going to start to look forward to, value, appreciate, and love those 15 minutes so much that I promise you're going to actually start waking up even earlier to have that alone time. And it's so powerful because you can set the intention for your day. You can take care of yourself in ways that you can't do as soon as everyone's up and you're starting that morning, where everyone needs something from you, and it's breakfast and it's lunch bags and it's homework and it's after school stuff. So just 15, 20 minutes in the morning. One, for me, what I find is a great habit is just a few moments of silence and stillness, because I don't get that again until 10 p.m. when my kids go to bed. So if I'm able to do that, and like you said, it's a great time for journaling. It's a great time to track how we're feeling. Like I'm noticing a lot of tension in my back or neck today, or I'm noticing that my stomach does feel off this morning, or there's a tightness in my chest. Having that time to become aware of it, and then being intentional about you're going to give your body what it needs today. So my body feels like it needs a walk around the block today and some sunshine. I'm going to give it that. My body needs a HIIT exercise today where I can just go hard and get a lot of this anxiety and energy moving inside of me. I'm going to give it that today, and put it into your schedule depending on what it is that you need. Where when you just wake up on the alternative, right, and your kids are in your face and they need something from you, you miss out on all of that. And you're kind of going through your day without that intention, taking care of your nervous system, taking care of your mind and your body, that you'd otherwise be able to do. So that's one of my favorites.
Okay, agree. Same. When I started my own transformation journey in 2015, it started with getting up before my kids. And I was like, this is magical.
Yeah.
It is magical. Like just to like sit, like you said, in silence and drink like hot coffee, like with my dogs. I was just like, And sometimes my kids would get up a little extra early and they would come like have like sweet little cuddle time when they were little. And that was kind of magical too. Even if I just had 5 minutes to myself, like you said, it really gave me a chance to check in with myself, see what I needed, and lean into that. I love that so much. That's such a high impact habit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
And if, like you said, if you have really young kids and you feel triggered by that, like literally like 5 minutes before they get up, like
Yeah,
just like go lock yourself in the bathroom for 5 minutes if you
that's
have
right.
to. I get it. I get it. So, Michelle, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like we've kind of come full circle, like we were talking about before. We have a lot of what we need inside of us, and really digging deep into, like you mentioned before, resourcing ourselves, journaling, being aware of our personality patterns, our thoughts, our feelings, regulating our nervous system will really allow us to lose the burnout and find the calm. So thank you so much for that today. So appreciate you.
My pleasure. This was great. Thanks for having me.
So fun. Well, where can everyone connect with you and find out more about you?
Yeah. So my website is just my name, michellegrosser.com. You can find everything there about coaching. The quiz will link, michellegrosser.com/quiz. You can find me on Facebook. We have a community called the Calm Mom Collective. And then I hang out on Instagram sometimes when I feel like it and I'm in the mood,
Great.
and have the bandwidth at michellegrosser.coach.
Awesome. Well, Michelle, thank you so much again for this conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you so much for this enlightening conversation. As you can tell from the intro early on, friends, I learned a lot about my own personality pattern, and I hope you have a light bulb moment as well. So, like I said, I'll be linking in the show notes to Michelle and her podcast and the quiz we referenced. I took this quiz as well, so you can learn about your own personality pattern and how to find habits of calm in your life based on that knowledge. So let's talk about our 3 big takeaways. So number 1, resourcing yourself. I love this phrase, this term so much that Michelle said. And once you learn, your pattern, really using a habit like journaling, self-reflecting, and see why you do that pattern. Why are you the way you are, right? So, for me, when I did the quiz, this is exactly what I did. I had to sit there for a moment and be like, okay, well, why is this? And it really led me into like, well, wow, this is why I'm so passionate about helping women take care of themselves. I'm still in that merging pattern, nurturing others, but I'm hopefully modeling to you the importance of taking care of yourself as well. And I'm being really intentional with that because it doesn't come easy to me. Okay. So reflecting on your pattern, what habits do you have in place that are maybe not serving you due to that pattern, and just learn to have boundaries to protect yourself against that overwhelm, and find the calm in your life by reversing that automatic habit and behavior that you already have on your pattern and creating a new, healthier habit based on that knowledge. So it all starts with awareness. Step number 2, kind of expanding on awareness, is be aware of physically what's happening in your body, regulating our nervous system. So, if we're in a high state of stress all the time, our heart rate might be elevated. You find your breathing patterns are all over the place. You tense up your shoulders and you feel tense everywhere, right? Those are signs that you need to slow down and regulate your nervous system. Pay attention to the tension or pain and unease in our bodies, like my IBS story from earlier. And like, I love what she said so much, like, listen to the message instead of killing the messenger, right? I love this so much. So if you're feeling tension in your shoulders all the time, okay, great, go get a massage, here for that. But what is causing that tension? What is the root cause of that? Maybe it is, you feel you're in that rigid pattern and you're falling off course in a lot of ways. The rules aren't going the way you want to. Systems are falling out of place and you feel yourself tensing up. Your shoulders are going up more and more and more. How can we relieve that tension for you and fall into that pattern and fall out of that pattern, if you will, to help relieve that tension with healthier coping mechanisms? Okay. One way to do this is to track. Obviously, you can get a habit tracker in the shop. You can just get a piece of paper and a pen. You can just write a note in your phone. Every time you feel a certain way in your body, write down what is happening in your life, and I guarantee you'll find a pattern over time. And then lastly, I love how she mentioned doing high impact habits. So as we learn more about our personality patterns, as we're leaning into, okay, what habits am I doing that aren't serving me? How do I create healthier habits that might seem overwhelming, right? That's why you're listening to the show. We got habit hacks. They're simple. They're applicable to women. That's why we have the Atomic Habits for Women philosophy around everything, because we do have to do habits differently, but starting so small, like she said, just 15 minutes. I love how Michelle gets up, just a little bit earlier to have that silence and quiet time for herself. Y'all know I love the ritual of making my coffee by myself every morning. Well, my doggy's with me, of course, and just taking care of yourself. It's so powerful to do that for yourself and setting the intention for the rest of your day before the rest of the day gets crazy and that stress and hot mess express starts creeping in. You've already set a new intention for you versus just feet hitting the floor, boom, you're taking care of everyone else. So think of some other high impact habits, but make it so tiny. We talk about in all the accelerators, just getting 1% better. Just 1%. That feels so less overwhelming instead of being like, okay, well, I'm going to do this 10-step self-care routine and get up an hour and a half earlier. Like, no, get up 15 minutes earlier, make your coffee, let your dog out, and just sit in silence. Just sit in silence or journal or read something. Girl, it's going to set you up for so much the rest of the day. And it's so tiny and so small and doesn't take a lot of time. And it's going to have such a high impact, thus it being a high impact habit. So friends, I've linked everything in the show notes to connect to Michelle and the Calm Mom podcast, the quiz to find out your personality pattern as well. I hope this was super useful for you. I know personally it was for me. Michelle, thank you again so much for coming on this show. Friends, we have some amazing things coming up as kiddos are getting ready to go back to school soon. Can you believe it? That means we're going into a new season of our life, which means we need to dig deep into our habits and pivoting those if we need to, which is okay. That is what we teach inside of all of the accelerators because, different seasons of life will come and go. We will be doing the Healthy Habit Reset live in August as well. I'll announce that date here in a couple of weeks for you. But I'm sending you all a big hug. Thank you so much for listening today, and I'll catch up with you Thursday for Habit Hack Thursday. Hey girl, real quick before you go, did you know I have a secret podcast where I talk all about why most habit strategies don't work for us women? Spoiler alert, it's not our fault. Visit bit.ly/Atomic Habits for Women, it's linked in the show notes, to access my secret podcast series and have your biggest aha moment about why and how women have to do habits differently. And if you love the podcast, the number one way you can thank me is to leave a rating and review in iTunes. That way more mamas can find the show. Love and appreciate you, friend. We'll see you next time.